Welcome, 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 everybody, to I Am Here. We have a slew of people with us. Yes. So I am here with Amarilis and Gabriela, joined by our family members from all over the place. I am here. We're here to share our stories, our personal perspectives, bring in healing, laughter, and a lot of awkwardness. So I am glad that everybody's here. I'm really excited because we're going to get into some awkward stuff. Today we are talking about the talk. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, so much fun.
We are joined by Ana Maria, who is my sister, Gabriela's cousin.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
We are also joined by, go ahead, introduce yourselves.
I'm their little brother, the Amarilis and Ana, and then their cousins.
Yeah.
And I'm Luigi.
My brother.
Yep.
We have the same face.
Except I have a beard.
Yeah.
And Gabi shaves.
And I shave my face.
Yes. So we wanted to bring everybody together because, one, we just like having people because we love you guys.
And we love chaos.
And we love chaos. Yeah, I mean, this whole show was born of the idea of sharing stories and being at Mama's house and sitting and just laughing and talking over each other. So we get to replicate it and actually live it. It's really exciting. But also because we all have different experiences with the talk, even though we're in the same family. And we wanted to do siblings as well, because even in the same household, we have had such crazy different experiences with the talk, from a male perspective and a female perspective, and also just age differences, because Osito and I and Ana Maria, we have a larger age difference. Between Oso and I, there's 12 years. Between Oso and Ana Maria, there's 15 years. And Luigi and Gabi have a very large age
he's
gap
8 years older than me.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with our family. This is already exemplifying.
They need a break.
Yeah.
They were getting busy no matter what age.
Mama had 12 kids.
Yeah.
Mama had 12 kids, so.
Oh my gosh. They need hobbies.
Well, I mean,
there was no TV.
They found a hobby that they enjoyed.
Yes, there was.
There was a lot of TV, actually.
Yeah, chess.
But before we get into like really, really deep stuff, and I want to let everybody know that we are talking about the talk. So whoever is listening or watching, if you want to hear this and watch this first before you're playing it around kids to see if there's something you want to share with them or something that you just want to keep for yourself, you can just be forewarned. And we'd rather you listen and watch first before sharing.
It might be a little explicit.
It may be getting a little bit explicit, depending on what you want to share with you. Live it up to Karen's choice. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there. So Gabi came up with this idea. I'm going to throw it back on you because this is your personal responsibility. Gabi wanted to talk about the talk.
No, I just thought it would be hilarious if we talked about it, but.
Under the bus.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think it's because we were having a conversation and that kind of did come up that we had even though we had the talk with the same people, it was completely different.
Yeah. Wait, okay, time out. So it was the same exact people who gave you the talk. So it wasn't like, because I know some families are like, oh, the moms will talk to the girls and the dads will talk to the boys. But you both, how did it work for you guys?
It was the mom.
We had our mom tell us.
So Theo was not involved with this at all. He's like, I'm out.
Well, for me, he was kind of sitting there, but I feel like he was also getting the talk. But we'll get to it.
Go ahead, tell us the story.
For me, Papi was just like, he came into the room. My mom was like, oh, ven, and he's like, oh, I need to do something. And then he left, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. I'm scared.
And it might not just be because you were a girl. It's because Luigi was the first. He was like, oh, I did this before. I know what's going to happen.
Oh, my gosh. So now I'm curious, Luigi. Go ahead. I want to hear your story of the talk.
Okay. All right. So this is way back. I was
Way back,
I was trying
back
to
in
put the timeline, and this was around 5th grade.
So you're like 10.
Which, yeah, I think that's how old you are. And it was time for dance, like my first dance. This was at a Catholic school, actually. Oh yeah, I was very nervous.
Oh man, so the dance comes on, we gotta talk to you about sex.
Mm-hmm.
That escalated quickly.
And so I remember it was like the day before. I was so nervous. I've never even gone to like a social gathering outside school at that point. But anyway.
So you have friends?
No.
We weren't allowed to have friends.
You weren't allowed to have friends. That's a different.
They're bad.
That's it for school.
Yeah. So you know, I was playing some video games, and mommy came in. She came and she's like, Luigi, ven aquí. Vamos a hablar.
Oh no.
And I was like, all right, let's okay, I hope I'm not in trouble. I mean, I don't think I did anything wrong. So I sat down, and my mom was there. It was in the kitchen. And
the kitchen is where all the talks go down.
Why?
This was in the kitchen, and she sat down.
It's the most sanitary place. That's why.
Yeah. And then I feel like she didn't plan this with my dad before, because
she just felt it in her spirit. Like, this is
I believe he was in the vicinity, and she goes, "Ven aquí, siéntate aquí," and he goes, "Okay."
He was bamboozled.
Oh no, she caught both of you off guard.
Oh, and the thing is, like, with our dad, is he's very, like, introverted, and he's very quiet, so I can see all of this unfolding exactly how he explains it.
So they sit down, and, you know, my mom looks at me and she goes, "What do you know about sex?"
Pause.
I like my eyes, but I think the best part was my dad suddenly like getting really red, like, "Oh, this is what's happening."
I'm not ready.
I don't think any of us were ready. So she started. It was weird because I feel like it wasn't really talk about sex. It was talk about don't touch yourself. And because this was the only talk I got, by the way.
Wow.
And it was weird because she's like, so, you know, you're getting older and there are changes in your body. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
Now,
did you already know about this stuff before? Like, did you like at school or anything? Because you're like, oh, whoa.
Like that same year, they had brought someone over to do a health class or something, and they like split the boys and the girls up or something like that. I don't remember. It was weirdly done.
Yeah, because like I don't understand. I don't know how they did it for you, but I remember being in 5th grade and they split us up. Mm-hmm. But what they talked about was hygiene. Like what body changes and like wearing deodorant and what happens. But it wasn't about sex.
And they told us that our things would grow bigger as we grew. And I remember the whole like all the guys cheering.
Never happened.
Like I remember all the guys cheering.
I was like, I didn't get any of this. I think we're gonna get big.
But anyway, so back to the talk.
They lied to you.
I really. I don't know what's going on, because like for me, I'm just like what did I do? Why is this happening? You know, sometimes I'm gonna tell you a story.
Oh no!
This is literally it. She goes, I'm gonna tell you a story. One of your uncles started playing with his pee-pee, and like at that moment, like.
The pause.
She would do the pause. She would do the pause.
I think it's the Latina mom thing.
No, my mom didn't do that to us while we were.
I wish there was a pause so I could breathe.
And I feel like I just like got so red because like in my mind, like you would think like what? But like for me, my first thing that I thought was, they know. Anyway, so she, and I was like, and she's like, and then he would do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, and one time, white stuff came out.
Oh no.
And it scared him. And this was my dad's reaction. He was like this. He was like,
oh my.
Utterly horrified.
I'm just like, what? And he goes,
oh my.
He was like, what?
Oh, I'm uncomfortable with your talk now.
That's horrible.
Like, and he like then switched to trying not to laugh. And he just like, and he looked away.
What a supporting.
He's, yeah, like, because at that point, like, I mean, as an adult, and you think of just like, you know, being respectful of your spouse, and he's like, you don't want to contradict and her authority,
like,
but at the same time, like, you're like, what the heck are you talking about?
Actually,
they should have practiced this before.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, no, okay. So that was literally like almost it. Like I'm pretty sure that was it, and there was like a little more, and I remember just like them leaving because this was apparently supposed to be maybe because I was gonna go to a dance.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
But the thing is, it's like it's not like they had to tell me any of this anyway, because like I was going to a 5th grade dance. And I didn't even dance with anyone because they just made fun of me.
Oh, no.
So I came back from that dance and cried. And then like I told this story to my girlfriend. She's like, "Oh, you didn't have to have the talk. You were walking birth control anyway."
I think her love.
That is not nice. Look at that face. Dang. Okay.
But so I was so confused with the talk though.
Wait a minute. That was not what happened with me at all.
Thank
I
God.
was confused, right? And I'm like, should I like ask questions?
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I don't know what was going on. So basically, my whole like exposure to that was through little things like that. Like for example, growing up, I used to love the Backstreet Boys, right?
Oh no, they're the devil. Just
but you know that one song where he says the word sexual. I didn't know what that meant.
Oh yeah,
I knew,
sexual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know what it was.
Look at me go.
All I knew what it was, that it was a bad naughty word, because I had to hide when that came because of the reactions that I saw on every
You know
level.
what lyrics we used to be singing when we were little? Oh my goodness.
It's because of the face, like, cambia eso, change that. Like, so I'm just like, oh,
Don't say sexual.
I don't know what it is.
That's insane.
So that was my whole background.
That is crazy. You were really sheltered. That's really surprising to me because like our household was so different. But I guess it's not that surprising because you were like almost like the first cousin born in the newer generation, where it's a lot more conservative, a lot more sheltered, a lot more protected. Even though we were protected and sheltered, I think
babies.
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know, because like it is so different. Like
and that's how it was.
Like, did you not grow up watching Sábado Gigante? Like, did you not did you not see? You weren't allowed to see those things.
Oh.
I was.
Oh.
Yeah, she was, because after they saw how much they messed up with me, so he fixed it with her.
I was watching novelas. I was watching soap operas. My grandma seeing all that stuff.
That's really insane, though. That's so insane. You're like your story. Poor Tío Gilberto.
It's so different. It's so different than anything I expected to hear.
That's the real victim here.
Like what's crazy is like it became something again. Like of being ashamed of your body, but also not just ashamed, but scared. Like,
Yes.
this is what happens to your body. White stuff. Like, now you're scared of something that's so natural in your body, and how that affects you afterwards.
Like
you're gonna break out into a fungus that seeps down.
Like, I was gonna find out anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was gonna find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna find out. But what happens is they got you at an age that was still young, even though you were exploring, but young enough to, like, when this happens, now something dangerous or scary or sinful or bad is happening because my body's doing something natural. I don't know if that's how you took it growing up, but I'm like, what the heck?
But it gets in there, and the fact that you felt like you might want to ask questions, but you couldn't.
Yo, your dad couldn't even ask questions.
No, I'm sure he had lots of questions. Like,
wait, how do you even know this?
Yeah, so
that makes me wonder so much. How are their talks with Mama?
I'm sure they didn't have I'm sure they didn't have
because this had come from somewhere.
Well, okay, so what was your story like when you had to talk with Mommy? Because you're the oldest, like Luigi's the oldest in their house, but you're the oldest. You were the first like experimental guinea pig with this.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is what you had just mentioned about, like, us growing up in such a different generation. I was one of the older grandkids, so like I was maybe the third or fourth grandkids out of 30 something grandkids. So
you're old as hell.
I'm old as hell. But we grew up watching Sábado Gigante, and we grew up watching Cámara Infragante and Budweiser commercials and cigarette commercials where, like, thongs on.
But not even that, because I even remember the kids shows. Like, we watched Shusha.
Yes.
Who later on was found, like, back in the day, back in the 80s, Latin, Latino, Hispanic. Like, Shusha was then later found out to be a porn star, and she had a kids show, and she's wearing small little outfits, and she's dancing, and we're just kids, and we're dancing.
Shusha!
And we're dancing with her, and I remember running upstairs once Shusha came on like the TV. I remember watching her, looking at what she was wearing, running upstairs trying to see if I could find something similar, even though I didn't, but I wanted to dress something like her and then come down and then we danced like her. And it was completely innocent. Like, she just had a kid show. Yeah. She was just doing something else with her own personal life and her other professional life. But as kids, like, we grew up seeing, like, and we were encouraged as girls. Like, I remember watching Thalia with her, like, bra tops and bustiers, and we would do, like, the dances, and we were encouraged. Like, our family was cheering us on and saying, "Wow, you do it just like her." Like, yes, like, you're a good dancer, kind of thing.
And that's the thing is, like, when you asked me what was my talk, I don't really think that I had a talk about sex or any of that at home. I had to talk about guys get comfortable because I'm the one that cuts to the chase. But I had a talk about periods, and I had to talk about women, like puberty and all that stuff changing. And
all the science.
Our mom and dad's dynamic were very different because their family backgrounds were very different, and they were both very religious. Pero papi always yelled at mom for being too liberal, and you're too wild, and you're teaching these things to this girl. Papi was nowhere in the room, nowhere, probably even in the house when I got my talk. And this is one of the weirdest memories, but mom still laughs about it because we were in the kitchen and we're making breakfast, and kitchen, but she's cooking. It's not as safe as you think or as sanitary as you think, Gabi, because she's making pancakes, and she takes the batter and she starts drawing the fallopian tubes and the uterus and this.
You ate.
I don't know if I remember. Like, I don't remember eating it.
I'm sure
we didn't waste food at home either. The mom's very sciencey, and I had always, like, mom always, and I remember, and it was completely normal. And this is, I think, why we're like, I personally am very, very comfortable with this, because it was always a very matter of fact talk. When I lived in Puerto Rico, maybe I was 3 or 4 years old. I had to be 3 or 4 because mom was pregnant. So it was either with you, I think it was with you, and or with our other little sister. And a man, like some kind of business guy, insurance guy, I don't know, came over to the house, had to do some stuff, and he said something about, oh, your mom's gonna have a baby, that's gonna be so great, it's gonna come out the belly button. And I said,
The belly button.
it's not gonna come out the belly button, it's gonna come out of her vagina. And they always laugh because that man's face turned beet red, but it was a very matter of fact kind of thing. So I don't think I ever had the talk, because it was always just mom's motto is, if a child asks a question, it's because they're old enough to handle the answer. You give them enough answer.
Yeah.
If they ask more, then you give them more information. If they ask more, then you give them, they're only going to be asking for the information that they're ready for. So
it's so crazy though, because like that's exactly how I don't remember the Pancake Talk. I remember the Pancake Talk stories. Like people always bring up the stories like, mom, you know, made the fallopian tubes, and she's like, well, you asked, so I was just doing. Like it was so just natural. She's like, I was cooking, you asked, so I used the supplies and the resources that I had at hand to answer these questions.
She got creative.
But I don't remember that, but I do know that that was almost the relationship and the dynamic. Everything with mom was like an opportunity to talk. Because I remember, like it wasn't a sit down one conversation. It was something that was gradual over time. Every opportunity, like remember your 13th birthday, watching Clueless. Dating you, damn. Sorry, my bad. Don't do the math. But we were watching Clueless on like video, like on VHS
From Blockbuster.
Ooh, really. Anyways, I don't really remember this. I just remember the story. But I remember she used that as an opportunity to talk about, like, after we watched the movie and watched the whole thing, and after I think even your friends left, she's like, so what are some of the things that you saw in these movies that were like appropriate? What were some things that you thought were inappropriate? Because she was talking, there was like scenes where they would go up and they were in a party and then they would go to the bedroom and they would be making outing. Nothing like, it was still PG-13, but there was nothing explicit, but it insinuated. And she took those opportunities to, like, they're in high school, they're young, like what would you, like, she would just use it as a conversation opener. But I never had the talk about what actually happened during sex. Like everything was always science, like what happens in your body. And like the fallopian tube, the uterus, what happens with that. And in school it was the same thing. And so I knew about, like, there was a sperm comes in, you know, and like I didn't know how the sperm came in. I just knew, like, the sperm and an egg, they come together, they create an embryo. This is how babies are made.
See, my book had pictures.
Maybe I didn't pay attention that day. I don't know. But like that was not a conversation that we had, and I think we ever had. It was a conversation about the science, the reproduction system, and also like the morality of virginity. As a woman, I remember having those conversations with mommy over and over again of like, being a virgin is important. Being a virgin is something that is a gift, you know, and that's the sanctity of sex in marriage and waiting. Like those were the conversations that we had. And it became like this big thing of like virginity was everything. Like it was everything. And I remember having a talk when mommy was pregnant with also, right now, I'm like, at that time I'm 11. Right, and she's just talking about it, and she's just sitting with us again. And this time it was a family room. We were sitting together and we're talking, and I don't remember what we were talking about specifically, but I remember her talking about how important virginity was to all 3 of her daughters. And she's like, and I remember this because I remember being 11 and the reaction inside of me of like, just like you guys are, like you guys are virgins, and I was thinking, oh, you're not? Like that was in my head, I'm like, oh, mommy's not a virgin.
Mom,
like that was
Mom.
Because like that's what a whore. I did not go like that.
I know.
But like my thought, like it was just so automatic, like, oh, oh my gosh. And then I remember checking myself. I'm like, oh, of course, she has kids. Like, duh, she's pregnant. Like, duh. But it was almost like this, like,
because you never think of,
because like I knew my mom and dad had a very sexual relationship because they didn't hide that from us. And not to say that they were being explicit, but like they would like make fun of each other. They were very affectionate.
Yeah.
They were like, you know, like there was butt slaps in the kitchen. There was slow dancing. There was kissing in front of us. There was jokes, you know, like the jokes of like, oh, like sexual jokes that I knew they were over my head, but like I knew enough that I was like, they're talking about sexy sex, right? Even though I didn't know what that was. I just thought that a man and a woman lie down together and they're naked. I knew that, but I didn't know what. Yeah, from the novelas. And like, that's natural. But nobody sat down and talked about like the actual
what happens under the sheet.
And
No, I never.
I would like to add to this because now that you're saying this, I'm actually getting a memory of when I was a kid that actually
Gabriela looks so nervous.
Not all of us were there. Those that were alive in
like
here were there. Like I know Amarilis was there. Anna was there, I think, and we were watching a movie. I think I was really young kid, and we were watching a movie with Robin Williams. I think it was called Bicentennial Man, where he's like a robot.
Yeah.
And you know, as a kid, I just remember watching it. But there was this one specific part where he asks the one guy like about, you know, what happens with sperm. Or something like that, and then like, you know, they explain it. Obviously, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about, but then the guy asked like, "What happens, you know, to the rest of the sperm?" And he's like, "They die." And then he like gets sad. And in that moment, Amarilis was the one who said, "Oh, I never thought about it like that. That's so sad." And then I'm sitting there like, "What are you talking about? What is it?" And I'm not gonna lie. That memory replayed in my mind for years.
Wow.
Until probably I was in late high school, maybe in college, where it actually clicked, that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So that's like,
yeah, it's just like there's certain things that are talked about and certain things that are still like taboo. Because I know like as we're talking about this, is like, we're talked about like the shoulds, the science, the shoulds, the morality of it. But as an adult looking back, I'm like, well, nobody talked about like what it meant for us as people. You know, I think about it and like the times that we did have talks with mommy, and anytime like even after like being a teenager and an adult and having conversations of just life and actual normal human feelings, I never talked to mom about those things. Never talked to anybody, honestly, anybody about those things. I would listen and observe and like learn that way from like friends and TV and things like that. And it was easy for me to talk about other people's experiences or have questions if I had questions. Like I remember asking mom, like I was in middle school, and I remember we used to have the little Sips juice boxes for lunch. And one of my favorite flavors was cherry. And I remember going to school and people would always make fun of whoever, because it wasn't just me, like Sips was a very popular brand, but whoever had cherry juice, they would get it that day. Like, oh, you're drinking cherry juice. Oh, you're getting cherry juice. And I remember like knowing that it was a sexual innuendo, but I didn't understand what it meant. So I remember going home, and who did I ask? I asked my mom. I asked Mom, why do they call it cherries? Like, why do they call that cherries? And she broke it down. She's like, oh girl, because that's what it looks like when you first lose your virginity, it looks like cherries. That's like, she just broke it down very matter of fact. Like I wasn't scared or worried of talking to mom about asking questions. What I was more concerned about was asking questions about myself. Like, you don't admit that you have any romantic or sexual experiences yourself. Yeah. You just talk about other people, because the way they talked to us about it was very removed. At least from my personal experience.
Oh no, girl, how old am I? I don't know. I'm almost 40.
Damn near 40.
I still can't have this conversation with my mom. I can't do it. I don't feel comfortable with it.
Because we're like the oldest, but I can tell, like Gabby will be talking about that stuff in front of my dad. And I'll be like, excuse me? Like, I'll be offended. They'll be like, wait a minute, what?
Well, I can talk about stuff now with my dad, but like it was very awkward at first.
Like, I can't. We still fast forward through naughty parts.
Are you serious?
Well, you know,
you still do. Wait a minute.
Not me.
Oh,
No, not me.
Oh.
my dad.
This is going on the internet.
I remember,
Wow.
and maybe he wasn't in the living room because he was still dating your mom at this point, but I remember being in the family group in the living room and watching Pretty Woman and watching these movies that were not appropriate at all for us to be watching, and it was normal.
But you know what?
And
I think part of that was because your mom and dad were, again, like the younger generation. So even if they felt awkward, they wouldn't tell their older siblings to take that out, that it was inappropriate. Like the older siblings, like Papi being one of the oldest, had more authority, and they were just more open about life and just what it was, you know? So even though Papi was not part of the conversations, he wasn't against it, and he wasn't shutting it down either.
I just think it's so funny because he had a completely different experience than me.
Go for it. I want to hear your experience.
Like,
8
you
years
guys in
later.
the
I'm
kitchen-
ready.
Okay, so we were watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and there was an episode where they were emphasizing that Carlton was a virgin, and like I didn't know what that meant. I was like, I don't know, I was really young. I like 6, 5. I don't know why I'm asking. No, because you were a part of it. Okay, so Luigi it's your fault because we were watching it, and then I was like, Luigi, and we were both watching it together in the living room, and I'm like,
It's so uncomfortable.
and I was like, what's a virgin? And then you just looked at me, and his eyes got real big, and he goes, Mommy! And he gets Mommy. And it's like, Gabriela has a question for you. And she's like, un momento, que estoy haciendo algo. She's like doing something in her room. He literally like grabbed me and walked me to her room, knocked on her door, and said, Gabriela has an important question for you.
Help!
Like, he was very aggressive about it, and then you ran away, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I did. I did not want to be a part. I knew what was coming. Well, I thought I knew what was coming.
And I was like,
Because you're like, I'm not going through that again. That's shameful
No.
talk. She asked the question. I am not the one.
yeah, and then like I remember my dad was in the room with my mom, and then like they opened the door and like, hey, come in, what's up? And I was like, what's a virgin? And then my dad, like, his eyes got big, and then he's like smiling, and then my mom's like, Gilberto, and then he literally was like, tengo que hacerlo, and he was like, I don't remember what he said. I don't know.
Me and my dad ran. We left.
I think
That's where you learned it from. The men are ashamed. What is this?
I don't know. He said like he needed to do the dishes or something. He's like, oh,
So
Gabriela.
all of a sudden,
And she was like, come here. And then we went to her room, and she sat me on her bed, and she goes, are you asking this because of the Virgin Mary? And I said, no, because Carlton's a virgin.
She's like, who's this Carlton? And why do you know he's a virgin?
Yeah. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I was watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She's like, oh, you're too young to be watching that. I'm like, well, we watch it together as a family, but whatever. And then she like was like, okay. And then she was so sciencey about it because she was a biology person. So she was all like, okay, so there are eggs inside of you, and men have sperm, and they come together and make a baby. And that's
you had that talk at 6?
And I was like, okay. And that was it. I was like, okay,
Wait
like,
a minute. That
I got
doesn't
in
even
trouble
answer the
for that.
question. Like, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the women having, like, you having eggs and men having sperm does not answer the question of what is a virgin. Like, what the heck?
No.
oh no, she didn't answer that. She did it. Sorry, she didn't.
But I would like to add in here, just real quick. I got in trouble for this, for letting her watch Fresh Prince with me. And so, yeah, continue. Thank
That's
you.
about right.
He's like, let me interject. I have another
Oh.
complaint.
Yeah. So you know how like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air has like episodes that are TV-14 and episodes that are PG. I was only allowed to watch the PG ones. I wasn't allowed to watch the TV-14.
This is crazy.
But yeah, she was like, to the extent of what she explained to me, she was like, oh, a virgin is someone who didn't have their egg and the sperm come together and this and that. I don't know how she explained it, but it was not right. And I was like, okay. And then I was very confused, and she's like,
I'm so shocked.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad. But then again, I did ask very young, but at the same time, I kind of wanted an answer, and I never.
Yeah,
asked.
I think about it. I'm like, you were 6, but like, I remember having that. Like, I don't remember having a first time like, because it was always just a constant theme. And like, I remember now that you talk about like the ratings. Mm-hmm. We didn't have shows with ratings, right? But we had movies with ratings. And I remember Luigi. Like, because you're so much younger than us, I remember them screening what movies we could watch based on the rating, which was something so new for me as a kid. I'm like, what do you mean? We watch R-rated movies all the time. We watch PG-13 movies all the time. Like, it was not something forbidden. It was just became an education. And like, it wasn't blocked. Nobody covered our eyes or anything. It was just like, this is what it is. Like, it was not something. But I remember like going to Mama's house, and then like all of our aunts and uncles were like, oh no, PG-13, how old are you? You cannot watch it. I'm like, what is happening? This is a really good movie and I want to watch it.
I remember this because we had this issue with Space Jam.
Oh my gosh.
All right?
Space Jam.
Right?
That Lola Bunny.
I didn't want to watch Space Jam.
They got a new tool.
I mean,
I didn't want to watch Space Jam.
that Lola Bunny.
I wanted to watch A Time to Kill, which was an R-rated movie. It's a great movie. But anyway, they were like, we got Space Jam. And then I remember this.
Why is that
I forgot who it was. They looked at, they're like, this is PG. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm just like, wait, so you're telling me you're concerned for me to watch Space Jam?
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon with Michael Jordan.
Back in the 90s, that was like the most innocent, pure movie.
Like, there was nothing, like, literally.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's literally made for kids.
But it makes no
There was
sense.
nothing, it's probably violence. I don't know, like the Looney Tunes.
Well, it's just PG. A lot of the Disney movies are PG too.
Well, no, at that time I was playing my shooting games where I got to kill demons. Like, dude.
I don't know.
Where's the balance?
Yeah.
Oh my.
But I wasn't allowed to see like something like that. No.
That's so nuts. Also, what about you? Because like. You quiet over there just taking it in. Tell us about your talk experience.
Because I've just been over here thinking. I remember certain instances.
Because by the time like you were old enough, Papi was no longer in the picture. Like Papi was already passed. So you were in the home with mommy.
Yeah.
And us. Not us.
You guys
because
were like
I remember being out of the house.
And just like out and about most of the time. So most of the time I was just in the house with mom. And for the most part, it's what you guys were saying, where she's straight facts. You're like, I saw an episode of Billy and Mandy where a dude comes out, I know where babies come from. I'm like, that's hilarious. Let me go upstairs and tell my mom that joke. Because I didn't know what that meant. I just laughed at it. I go upstairs, I'm like, Mom, I know where babies come from. And then she's just like, where? I was just like, I don't know. And then I'm so young, and then that's when the conversation starts. And then I'm like,
see, that's where you done messed up.
I know. I really was just like, I was trying to be cute and entertaining, and this backfired on me.
This joke's not funny anymore.
It really wasn't. Like, I just sat there on her bed, and she's like, well, a baby comes when like a woman becomes pregnant, and then the mom pushes like the baby out of her vagina. Like, that's straightforward. I was just like, oh, okay. And then I walked back down the stairs and just went back to watching TV like nothing happened. And I didn't think about it. I didn't even know.
But she answered your question. She like, well, that's how babies are born.
Yeah.
She didn't go any deeper than you needed to.
I'm so thankful
for mom's this is that.
beliefs on that, because it has helped me as a mom a lot. But I'm thankful. It was just no run around.
Yeah. But it's also like you guys were saying, where I learned I'll get my questions answered if I ask it in a certain way. But then when I was older and I'm going to karate and I got like a crush on this girl, if I bring that up to mom, then it's a whole different talk about you don't date girls until you're ready to get married. Are you ready to get married? And I'm like,
You're like 10.
9. I'm 9. Miss, I'm 9. I don't even know how to spell marriage correctly. And that's where I just sort of like, the talk was just sort of sprinkled in throughout my childhood, which is just like, if you have a question, here are facts. But then afterwards, when I started wanting to get more personal, because I'm a bit more sensitive, that's when I feel like I started asking questions, even if it was facts or if it was like, me personally. I was like, oop, closed off after that point. So I'm just like, I learned what I learned for the most part, but then.
What brought you to become more closed off?
Because like I said, when it was a more personal question, that's when I felt like I was being more vulnerable. Like, hey, I actually, like, this is affecting me personally. Then you get told, well, this is bad. And then, like, I'm like, oh, so what I'm thinking is bad, so I should just keep it to myself in sort of a way.
Because then you interpret it as, like, I'm bad.
Yeah. And that's where
I'm bad for having feelings. I'm bad for having...
Baby Jesus is crying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when the switch flipped. And I was like, oh, okay. Some of these things I shouldn't, like, say out loud.
You learn to censor yourself.
That's
and
so
I think
crazy.
that's it's definitely a common theme in all of us that I'm seeing. But it is like at home talking about sex and being sexy and showing our bellies and wearing very short shorts and very short mini skirts was applauded, encouraged. You look good. Be
depending
proud
on who you were around.
Well, if it was mom or dad, to me, I never had a problem with it.
Yeah, but you
And
went to the
most
grandparents' house and then it's just like, oh man.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
different.
But it was applauded. Everything was fine. But if I'm talking about me or liking boys or boyfriends, shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, shut that
But
dirty
you
mouth.
know what's funny? You know what's funny though? That it's only some
Yes.
of the people.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because then you get to like Moncho and his brothers, and then it's like they
I was just thinking that.
like they don't even try to censor.
And
It's
I'm not
not
even
fault.
like, I wasn't even thinking about that specific family, but I remember going to like being in other family members' houses.
Mhm.
And I remember like one of our cousins sitting there and he was talking with me and mommy. We were in like in their balcony and we're just talking and chatting, and he's talking about his experience with the talk. I don't know how he came up with this. He just was talking about like man, and this is what happened, and then I felt so bad. Like he gave us the whole details. Like he felt like he was sinful for having a natural reaction. He went and confessed. Like, oh, he gave us all this story, and then he was talking about how he walked in on his parents, right? And he's sitting here telling me and my mom, like, and I'm just sitting here like absorbed. I'm laughing because the story's hilarious, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, you have no shame in talking about this in front of your godmother, like in front of your mom. Like, I thought that was so amazing, but then this is where like it went extreme to me in my head. Like, to me, that was a little bit normal because there's some distance there. Like, you can joke and you can talk about these things, about sex and about your relationships and all these things. You can do all this with extended family members, but you don't do this with your parents. This dude, he's like, Mommy, come here, Mom. He invited his mom into the conversation, and he screams for her the other side of the room, and he's like, Mom, remember when I walked in on you and Dad? Tell him the story. Remember that time? Remember that time?
And I'm not gonna lie, I've always been jealous of that relationship.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Relationship
Okay.
of being able to be open, because like I'm not gonna lie, like even to this day, I still have to feel like I have to censor myself no matter what.
Same.
Till this moment.
I mean, if your dad is still fast forwarding movies and sex scenes in movies, and you're like freaking adults, like you're
but like not even just here though. It's like with the whole family. Right, so like there would always been times where we would be at grandma's house, and I would like see my other cousins and being like loud, cursing as much as they want, talking about sex and stuff, and I literally would be sitting there jealous because I would want to join in, but I feel like then I would change how everyone would see me. So I would literally sit there and pretend to be like, how dare you? And it's
You would judge them because you couldn't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you were.
But you know what the thing is? I think that it's very interesting to see the different family dynamics and how we all have reacted and how we all like our relationship in front of certain people in regards to the talk. But I think of it, and I know that those particular cousins, it's because they're boys, because their father and our father is very like our parents, our two fathers are very much alike, and their sexual history was very wild and very much alike.
They were the bad.
And they were. So we were somewhat comfortable in our household talking about sex, but because we were girls,
it was. Well, I think mom did it. Like she took charge because we were girls. I think, and like Papi, like he didn't like shame it. He didn't bring it down. He just allowed it, and there was like, it wasn't an overt talk with Papi. It was just like always just like very like covert messages of like, this is natural. And this, like when mommy became pregnant with also, I was not surprised that my parents were having sex. You know, again, like it was something so natural. Like to me, it's like that's normal. And I remember like when I came home in 8th grade, again, I was in Catholic school, and we had a conversation, I guess at the end, like they wanted to have a sex talk there, and my teacher was a nun. And I remember talking to mommy about what we were learning, and like we were making fun of the nun because she was talking about masturbation. It was part of the religious education, right? And she was talking about it, and she became so cherry red, and we all made fun of her, like, yo, like we already know this, like why are you so like, and I came home and I told mom, I was like, yo, this is what happened in school today. Like she turned bright red. And I'm thinking it's funny. I'm just sharing a funny story with my mom about school, because like I can have these conversations with mom because she's permitted it, and like it's comfortable, like it's not shameful. But she became so angry. She's like, no, I do not agree with her being so embarrassed and so red and so like shaking, because that's, the woman was shaking talking to us about sex and the body. And she's like, mommy was so angry. She's like, she should never teach you that way, because what she's teaching you is that sex is bad, and it's not bad. Like that was mommy's point. She's like, sex is not bad. I do not agree with people telling you that. I don't agree with her shit. And I'm like, overtly mom was telling us how wonderful and how great it was, but there was a lot of mixed messages in the fact that it's only good after you're married. You know, if you have any feelings about it before, or any questions about it before, you're like, no, don't, like, that is shut down. So
it's not just bad, but sinful, which is another step beyond bad with our upbringing. You know, that is like when you're brought up as religious as we were, you know, when something is a sin, suddenly that turns from something that's just bad to
something that's like
eternal damnation.
Something that's gonna mess with your soul.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because, like, going back to what we were saying about how I think it's funny because, like, I kind of started having the memories and realizing that mommy did try to tell me the full talk, but I spent so much time with my grandma that she like instilled like that
fear.
Sex is just bad. I mean, towards the end of her life, like she started saying that it's good.
Grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she would change up too with which generation she was talking to. She would switch it up, because I remember she would be like, people would come in and they would be like, yo, they were like, señora, you have a lot of kids. And I remember her sitting there just chill. She's like, I tried it. I liked it. I kept doing it. Like,
yes. And it's so confusing.
Okay, I got so many things to say about this. But first of all, okay, well, I spent so much time with grandma, like so much time. Like she was like the person that basically raised me, right? So she would, sometimes we had lots of talks, and she just was like, okay, eso es una porquería, every time that sex would go on the screen.
She did not say that.
Yeah,
like she was like, trash. And then so much so to the point where when my mom tried to have the actual talk with me, like she had that, like she was getting sick, so she knew she needed to do it. She's like, okay, let's do this. And every time she tried to talk to me, I like right now when we're talking, I just completely forgot. She tried to tell me this goes in here and that happens, and I covered my ears that I said, no, I don't want to hear it.
So much so that you blocked it up until now.
Yeah, so much so until now. And not only that, but like in class, we were in school, and I refused to pay attention to the point when I was 12 years old, and I gave the man fallopian tubes when they gave me a diagram. Because I was like, I didn't know anything. I was in sixth grade.
So how did you eventually figure out what Lego goes where?
What Lego goes?
Friends
Probably,
just talked about it. But
Yeah.
like, interesting.
And then like just.
Also, you seem like you wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Like, almost like over here, like, oh.
Man, hype.
Wait. One thing. We have a story, and also was there, I think.
I was sleeping over at Grandma's house, and so was Alecha, which is the younger sister.
Yeah.
And we were talking about.
You're doing my face.
Yes.
You were doing makeup. Both of you guys were doing
Makeup.
girls' tutorials.
Yes. So I was sitting with Alecha, and we were watching makeup tutorials.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, Grandma comes walking
With
like
a bata,
in
she got
her-
a doobie.
yeah,
She was sleeping.
She's all ready to go to sleep, but
Sleeping.
she had already taken her teeth out,
Yeah.
and she walked over slowly to us. She like leaned in, and she's like, "No debe de estar mirando esa cosa. Todo lo que piensan es sexo, sexo, sexo."
For those who don't speak Spanish, translation, please, Luigi.
She said,
Hey, boys.
She said, "You guys should not be watching that type of things. All you guys think about is sex, sex, sex."
But she was so angry
Also,
like
that
angry.
she tried to turn off the. First of all, for the people who don't know, our grandma was blind.
Yes.
When it was convenient for her.
It was convenient.
yeah.
But
hmm Yeah, I know that for a first-hand experience. She was blind when it was convenient.
What was so
She's talking
bad?
about, I see, because she has the window facing like the street where all the kids walk from school to their houses. And she's like, I see you walking through there with all the women. I'm like, what are you talking about?
You're like,
I'm
I wish, Grandma.
for real, growing up, they're just always, I'm getting accusations like, oh, you bring girls to your house. You walk with all these women over here and over there. I'm like, since when? I can't even get a girl's number in high school. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? But you guys forgot the point that she looked at Aleja, her sister, during that point, and she said, especialmente tú, porque tú eres una mujer. Like,
Oh yeah.
especially you shouldn't look at that stuff because you're a woman. So right then, that also teaches like the difference in like sex is like worse for women somehow than it is for men.
And I just remembered another line that she said,
bring it
because
out.
see, I even tried to block that out.
yeah,
She literally said, I'm going to say in Spanish, then I'm going to say it in English. She said, espera que te cases pa que vea que... She's gone. She's gone.
Can't
She
do
knows
it.
what's
Finish
coming.
it. Finish
She
it.
goes, espera que te cases porque vas a ver qué rico es. And just so you know, that means wait until you get married.
I didn't see those moves in her. I've heard that story, but I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
wonderful
please.
it is.
Oh,
it
sweet.
is.
They saw that in their mind.
Yeah. And she did a little movement
Like
and
she
then left.
danced a little.
She danced a little and left.
I mean, all three of them were there. They're all
They
vouching
were
for it.
Yeah. I mean,
Mommy.
I don't think I was in the room at that time, but I remember we were howling with laughter and we felt so bad, but it was an insane statement.
I don't think Alicia said anything.
No,
Well, I'm
because
sure she didn't. She probably stayed in shock.
and walked out. No, Alecha was laughing. We were all laughing later. We're like, what was that? We're looking at makeup. What is
Yeah, we were like, what just happened?
I thought we were looking at porn. Why would we? Why would we look at porn all together in our grandma's house?
like, wow, cool.
That's what she wants to know.
But that's what they thought, right? We wouldn't be able to sleep over at cousin's house because who knows? They have mala costumbre.
But you know what? Time out. I wonder, because I wonder about this. Do you think it was different for you guys? And Gabriela, I think you're in the mix because, again, you were a girl amongst a lot of male cousins. So you almost had that flip experience. But do you think it was different for you guys because you were guys versus being females?
I think yes, but this goes back to another point that I was trying to bring up, that growing up in such a big family where you have not only like one father figure or one mother figure, everybody tries to be your parent at the same time. And
Because
then, like,
that's how our community is.
yeah, but there's 7 of you on each side. Relax. and they're all telling you different things. And the thing is, not one of them sticks to what they said one day. The next day, they'll switch their thing. So if you multiply that, if we're doing math, you're getting 28 different messages into your brain at the age of 10.
Yeah, no, it's true though.
The things that you guys are saying, it's too much. And then there's no common theme. It's just like, well, I don't know what's going on because everybody's telling me a bunch of different nonsense.
It's so
and then I'm getting, and then when you're saying if it's different for boys and girls, I think me and Luigi could say 100% for sure, because when you're born with a penis, you're born with like an eye on you, like, hey, I'm watching you. Yep. I know what you're up to when you're not around. I'm like,
yeah, I think you get it. Because seeing it just in our perspective, like the male cousins that grew up with us, like our generation was mostly females. Like there was a lot of granddaughters, and then the next generation was a lot of grandsons. So for us, like it was more free and just protect yourself, but you were more free. But when the male cousins came by, they got a lot of the same thing you did of like, you guys are evil, almost like that. Like you guys are like predatory, and we have to make sure that you stay safe.
And I remember always mama and papi always saying, because they grew up with this phrase, and then we grew up with a phrase: when the head downstairs turns on, the one upstairs stops thinking. And that was for girls and guys. Always. It has nothing to do with you and your body. It has everything to do with. That's it.
No. Yeah. Like the men were taught like you need to be watched instead of like watch yourself, and the women were taught you need to be protected instead of like anything else.
But the way they did it, it almost seemed like they looked at like the women were naturally born pure, however the boys were naturally born as bad.
Yeah, we're contaminating.
Exactly. And as women, we almost had to take the responsibility for your salvation. It's almost like,
breaking chairs.
But it's almost like now, because it became like, because I know Gabi and I, we've had this conversation before too, of just like, we almost had to take the burden in that viewpoint of, if we dressed up a certain way or said something, it was our fault because we made you sin. Yeah. Because our bodies are like so seductive that you can't control yourself with all of that.
Just
so it's just like
add to this. Yeah.
Then we like become shameful and we want to hide in a box. And then I'm starting to take you like it's almost like it relieves you of any responsibility for being a human. And I had to undo that learning as an adult, because a lot of times I had to close myself and be small as an adult. And I remember being in my first like real adult relationship, and my partner at that time, he was the one that's saying, you cannot control how I think. You could be in sweatpants and you could be in hoodie. I would still be thinking whatever I want to think about you. And I'm like, and I remember hearing that, and I'm like,
so violated.
I felt violated. I was like, how dare
how dare you?
I am trying to destroy and it's
you
crazy.
pig.
And it's just like, and it wasn't even like you pig. It was almost like, how did I fail? What did I do wrong to make you think that?
But in reality, it's like,
it's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility.
I get so angry when we're talking, because the thing is, all of the responsibility about remaining pure is thrown onto the women. And that makes me so angry, because growing up, when I was like fully aware of the whole extent of the talk, I was told that I was the one who had to say something right away. As soon as it was never like consensual. It was never like, oh, however you like, whenever you feel unsafe or whatever. No, it was as soon as things start going bad, the man can't stop. You're the one who is responsible.
Irene, you just brought the worst memory back to me, because mommy used to role play. And she role played me.
I don't remember that. I don't remember
trying to push me to have sex. And she, come on, but if you love me, you'll do it. My mother.
See, that wasn't a part of my either. But all right, so
and it was up to me.
Here's the thing.
I ran.
Well, here's the thing. Again, Ana Maria is the oldest, so that never happened to me. I think mommy was
God, I erased that in my mind.
The way that they taught the girls also affected the way that the guys see girls. Because then we started seeing, and I'm going to tell you, like, this is, I don't know about also, but at least for me, I started seeing as that for everyone, all women. Because it was like, you know, it's your job to stay pure, right? And that's on them. And they were, you know, so so up until like very late, it was always like if a girl had any type of experience dating before, I never didn't want to even have anything to do.
That's horrible.
And that still like throughout my whole life essentially was like instant judging.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right? Because that's how
I
we
remember
were
having
taught.
that talk with also too.
And this is something that went all the way up, like probably up until like something that I'm still battling now.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, because that's something that you go through your whole life, and it's like something that's like.
And then you got the shame too.
Yeah, and then it becomes shame. So it becomes a whole like years of having to unprogram your brain from instant like shame and like judgment of other people and yourself.
It's so funny that you say that it still affects you even today, because last night I texted Amarilis and I was like, can I talk to you tomorrow about girl stuff? And it was literally about all of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think what you were saying, Luigi, though, is also a combination of, like I said, the 14 talking heads we had everywhere we go, and then also like the household we grow up in, because we learned the same, you know, messages as jumbled as they were. But I also had, you know, 4 older sisters. So
4 older sisters. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
you have
3,
4 older sisters, but 3 of them are alive. So
exactly.
I don't know if you were talking to the other one. That's another conversation.
No, I'm saying, okay, I had 3 older sisters, and then those were the more consistent voices that I had in comparison to, you know, everyone else. Whereas in your house, you're the oldest and you have like a younger sister, and I feel like that's where the like protectiveness sort of comes in.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're telling me like, girls can wear whatever they want. Who cares? I'm like, yeah.
That's true, because you actually had, you know, examples of like people in your life. But for me, I just had Gabby, who was a baby to protect.
And the thing is, like, even you didn't really have, like, even though we're older cousins, again, there was such an age gap that you're the oldest of a new generation, and the only older people you had to go to were the people who were telling you that it's wrong to even speak about sex.
Yeah.
Don't you even think about it.
Yeah.
And I remember having this talk with Osito, because I remember that transition you were talking about, Luigi. I remember having this talk with you when I think you were in high school, like, I don't know, but you were older but still younger, where I remember you talking about, like, if a woman doesn't respect herself, why should I respect her?
Oh,
I do remember that.
Yeah, I do.
And I remember having this conversation, and I'm like, no, sir. No, sir. You are not
shut down
going
fast.
There. You are not going there. Because, and it was, again, it's reframing that you have responsibility in this as well. Like, you're not going to put this all on the woman. The woman is going to choose what she chooses, and you're going to respect her regardless, because her choices are her body's choices. You don't get a say on that. You do not get a say on that. And you respect a woman regardless.
And that's why I'm grateful. I had a filter to filter out all the bull crap I was being taught.
You were my guinea pig. So I'm
I remember being so pissed off. I'm still a little pissed. You feel that? I feel that.
I know. I felt a little like I don't think that.
Yeah.
Also,
also, I'm real pissed off.
For real, what a jerk. Nah. That's what I'm saying. I had a filter. Like, I had 3 sisters that were just like, yeah, that's right. No, that's wrong. Yeah, that's right. No, that's wrong.
But the thing is, I didn't have a filter. Therefore, I had to learn.
Oh, Luigi, give me 3 hours. We'll fix you up real quick.
Yeah, do we need to give you
3
a
hours?
talk?
3 hours. We have.
I mean, how much time you guys got after this?
Don't touch yourself.
Don't do it. It's so scary.
White stuff is gonna come out.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Please.
no.
But the thing is that,
Crazy. This is the craziness, because like, it's so nuts that you had that experience as the younger kids, because I think also you had a lot of female like voices telling you no. But I remember growing up, because in the household that we grew up in, it was different than also. We grew up and it was like uncles and my dad, and there was a lot of male like
Very,
influences,
very dominant
right?
males.
And like even though like we're the girls, but we were in it, like we weren't separate from the conversations, from adult conversations. So I remember like our uncles coming to the house, and it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every single week.
Till 3 a.m.
Playing dominoes, drinking up, everybody's laughing, we're watching TV, we're listening to music, everybody's having a great time. And I remember like these same people telling you for shame on your body, right? Telling you guys this, having simple conversations that everybody is chilling and watching like Sábado Gigante, or like having these little contests of like, you know, like crazy. There's always sexual innuendo in the shows. And I remember one of my uncles, he's sitting there and we're just watching, everybody's hanging out, and he's like, all right guys, I gotta go. And he's going home. It's like 11 o'clock at night. He's like, all right, I gotta go. And mommy was the one that said, which one of those positions are you gonna try tonight? Which one of those positions? And he's like, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna try all of them. And then he's like, bye guys. So it was so normal. It was something so natural that it was like.
But here's the thing: they weren't the same people that were talking to Luigi.
They were the same.
No.
They were the same.
They weren't, because
They changed them.
at this point they didn't have kids.
Yes, they did. That's how the last one came in.
Wow. But
Mhm.
the way I see it, I mean, I think you were raised and formed a lot of this fear and stuff. We're not the people that were hanging out in our house, though.
Yeah. No, we interacted with completely different parts of the family. And that actually, like, depending on who we were around the most, seemed like it shaped.
Well, how would you
Yeah.
say, how would you guys say, like thinking about it now, because these are like the different talks and experiences that we had growing up, and we touched a little bit on how it affects us as adults. But like thinking about that, like what would you take away from these talk experiences and be like, all right, these are things that I would change and I wish they would have talked to me about sooner?
Well, I just take what I learned through like years in the university and like taking classes about like, you know, sex and how to talk to children as they mature and stuff like that.
So you're talking about like the psychology classes?
Yeah, the psychology courses. And then I compare it to how I was taught growing up. And I feel like the good things and the way that I would want to do things if I were to have children is don't talk down to them as they're going through life. Like, it's not your hoo-ha, it's a vagina. Call it what it is.
Who told you it was a hoo-ha?
No, I'm saying like how
Oh,
people
that's
give
what
nicknames like
I was like, wait a minute, because I was like, mommy always said the word.
it's not your bing bing, it's a penis. Just they're people. Talk to them like people. And I feel like, I don't know if you guys would agree, I feel like you would. The best information that we were given is when we were talked to like we were adults.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me like an equal and give them information throughout life. That's what I would do the way that mom did it, was just like, not just one talk. You have a question, we'll talk about it. If I feel like I need to say something, I'll say something. Just small talks throughout life and talk to like you're an equal. That's what my take would be.
Yeah, I agree. And my takeaway from my talks was to be scared of the white stuff.
It gets you in trouble.
It gets you in trouble. But first off, my takeaway is that literally.
Before you go on, because I'm like, wait a minute, because I'm like, the part of me, like the adult in me, and the one, the almost the professional side that work with kids who've been sexually abused, I'm like, you don't need to be scared of the white stuff. Like, you need to be scared if it's like different color stuff. You know, like, I'm thinking of diseases and stuff. I'm like, you need to know. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, these are things that kids don't know and people don't know. And then like when you have your first experience, people get sick and they get easily manipulated because they don't have the right information. And it's like, no, like you need to be taught like what it is and what is natural and what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
Even what you were talking about also, like I think about it in a different aspect of mommy. I always appreciated the fact that she told us the truth when we asked a question. But then going into my profession and dealing with kids who've actually been abused at a very early age, I started to change that mindset of no, because kids are not going to ask questions until they've already been exposed to the material somehow, like whether it's talking in school or things like that. So you have to be the authority in sex. You have to be able to express and make it normal and just regular conversation of what it is, what is not. So that way, when little Timmy in first grade tells you this is what sex is, you can be like, Ana Maria, be like, no, that's not how it goes. Let me tell you what my mom said, right? Because you have to have almost that authority of like, kids have to see you as authority figure, because otherwise they're gonna hear whatever anybody else said.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. Because as an example, I remember, this is another one of those clear memories. Kindergarten, I was on the bus and a kid was bragging to me about how a girl showed him her pee-pee. and he was telling me about how this was the sexiest thing ever. And I'm not gonna lie, at that moment, I didn't know enough to tell if he was lying to me or not. And I couldn't tell whether or not to know if what he was saying was something normal.
And that's very good to like point out too. You were in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, people wait until you're in middle school to talk to you about full sex. When by kindergarten, people are already talking about it. Like, and honestly, like you like when it comes to research, people show like by third grade, kids already have some idea what sex is. Is it wrong or right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but they have some idea. Like, and I remember in first grade having little talks about sex. Everybody was like, it was little and not being accurate talks, but everybody's making fun of, ooh, sex, ooh, like all these things already have this idea. Who's bringing this up? If you don't talk to your kids correctly, somebody else will. And what they teach them may not be the right thing. It actually makes it very harmful and dangerous.
I don't know at what point I just started not caring and just talking about it, like with my dad, like with no.
I still leave the room. I still leave the room.
He always leaves the room. I want to. I don't even know when was the last time. I talk about it a lot. I'm just like, oh, hey, let's talk about reproduction. Like, I don't know, like something like that. And then
let me teach you some stuff.
Yeah, or like I was like asking. I know that not many people would do this, but like I asked my dad about their honeymoon and everything. Like I was like, how is that? And like asking him questions, and he like actually answered me. And
so he feels comfortable because you're comfortable around him talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know at what point that happened, but it was like probably late high school, like super late high school. But
actually the same thing. I think I have the same experience in certain aspects where you're more like reserved with mom. Like there's certain things I'm like, I think sometimes I have conversations or I want to bring up things with mom and she's like, whatever, like she's open. And then there's times where she's like, why are you telling me this? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, because you're my mom. That's why.
Yeah. Or more so than
I'm very comfortable talking about sex. But
too
not
comfortable sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say a little too comfortable.
But not when it has to do with me personally and I'm talking to my mom.
Yes.
I will talk to mom about sex, but not getting specific. Nope, not getting personal. Can't do it. Yeah. She cannot know that I had sex.
You have a child, son.
Yeah, she cannot know that I had sex.
Still can't know.
She can't know even.
You know what's funny though? I remember having that exact conversation with mom, not about you, but about herself. Of her, and I don't know why we were talking about, but I remember she said like after she came back from her honeymoon, she was like, people are going to look at me different now. People are going to know. Like, they're going to know that I had sex. People are going to know. And I remember her telling me this. And then she's like, and then I came back and nobody treated me any differently. Like, it was just regular. So, like, having those kind of conversations is fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I'm not, you just reminded me that just 2 weeks ago, this is crazy that this thought, you know, sometimes you just have intrusive thoughts, random things. I remember walking past Papi. He was just sitting there watching TV. I looked at him, and I remember, this is crazy. The thought that crossed my mind was, he knows I got married at some point, therefore he knows I had sex. And then I got red, and I went to my room.
It's paralyzing. It's paralyzing because you did something that you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Even though you were married, it's like
supposed to.
Dirty.
Yeah. This is crazy that there's still intrusive thoughts to this day.
Because it was so entangled with it, and it's parts of our family that
Because I get how Luigi got that, because he was shamed into get with it. But I guess like there is, like also had said, there's like an interweave of different messaging.
Yeah, still happens nowadays where it's just like, because I feel that shame where it's just like, sometimes I don't care. I'll be in the car with one of our aunts and all our cousins, and I'm like, this is how I talk. I'm going to talk normally. Like, yeah, penis. And then all of a sudden, I see their eyes light up like, he said the P word. And I'm like,
And the
I'm
craziness is
22.
like, you're an adult. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm
It happens
22.
daily for me with Funchy in here. And I'll be like, Funchy, shh, shh, oh my God. Like, and I'm just like,
They're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to censor ourselves because it's not something we did, something we said, or something we're thinking. It's just, that's us. Why am I hiding a piece of me from someone who, you know, values me and should be important to me and stuff like that? So it's just like, this is me. If I want to say the word penis, put your eyes back in your head. We're adults. Just chill out.
Be like,
and that goes for me too. I need to chill out.
He did it. He said, "This is me, and I am here."
Yeah, that's good job. No, and like I love this conversation. I love that we are doing this, and I love seeing your faces. It's so nice. I miss having like the family talks, and now that we had to talk about the talk, what are you guys grateful for? This is what we kind of close the show with. One thing that maybe you're grateful for about anything.
no.
The white stuff. I'm grateful for the white
it's
stuff.
a wonderful part of life. But one thing I am grateful for is, and this is something I wrote down the other day, the ability to change your life by changing your mindset. The fact that we have the power to do that, I'm grateful for that, because sometimes I'm not in the mindset to be, I'm not in a good mindset, but knowing that I can change that mindset and that it'll change essentially everything, just having that as a tool, that's something I'm very grateful for.
That's beautiful.
That's true. I like that.
How am I supposed to follow that?
I would say I'm really grateful for honesty. Like I'm really grateful for being able to speak in the truth, hear the truth, and learn through it. And just being able to have honest, transparent conversations is so fun and healing and powerful. So honesty is mine today.
I will say that I am grateful for family and for technology allowing us to be connected through distances and through pandemics and through craziness, so that we can have these moments like this that kind of bring us back to the way we grew up. And I guess I'm thankful for that connection that we have as a family that brings us together.
So cool.
I know, it feels like Thanksgiving.
I didn't even put that together, but it kind of feels like that. Yeah.
Here, I'll change it up. I'm also thankful or grateful for growing up in a family and in a culture that empowered us to feel good as women and men.
Yeah.
I don't feel empowered.
Well, for you.
Well, that's honesty. Yes, for honor.
I guess I would say I'm grateful for perspective, because I feel like it gives us an opportunity to look at things from not only our point of view and other people's point of views, but also take a look at ourselves from different, ages, different experiences, and just being able to look at things differently. And I think that's dope.
I'm grateful for the undoing of shame over time. I think that's really important. And I like that we can just laugh about things that would make us uncomfortable like years back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is so cool. As we wrap up, we are really glad that you guys are all here. Thank you for spending time with us and sharing your stories.
Thank you for having us.
I'm here with you. Peace out, homies.
Bye.
Thank you.